Today we are going to be replacing a lid motor on an Ultranova bidet seat. To start this repair, we recommend you have a couple of tools handy to make this job easy. A screwdriver, whether it's a hand one or a small power drill, will work well. Doesn't need to be super strong. A pair of pliers can be handy as well. And then at least one or two pry tools will be needed to separate the upper and lower housing. And lastly, a pair of scissors can be helpful if you have to cut any zip ties. So to start this repair, we're going to flip our seat over. And there are 7 screws on the bottom of this. There are 4 in the front here and 3 in the back. The 3 in the back are a little shorter than the ones in the front, so make note of which ones go where, just so they're not mixed up when you go to reassemble the seat. If you have a small Tupperware nearby, it can be helpful to keep screws contained so you don't lose anything by accident. Just so you can see, the rear screws are a little shorter than the ones in the front, so keeping those separate in your container might be helpful for reassembly later. Okay, so the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to take our pry tools. And if you have 2, this will be a little easier because this part is a bit tricky once for the back half of it. But what we're going to do is we're going to take these tabs and we're going to pry them out and take our other pry tool and go along the side here and kind of just run it along the inside of the seat and push up until we get. So see, that tab is now out, and we're going to basically work our way around the back of this seat. We're going to take this one again along there's a little edge. We're going to in there and pry up and apart while we push this tab out, and go along the edge again, and then pry that apart. Okay. See, we got that mostly separated back here now. And then we're going to go to the other side by the water inlet and get the last tab here. And then that is now disconnected. And the reason you need 2 is because there are little tabs on the upper housing, and if you just try to pry those apart without separating them, they'll break off easily, so that's why we recommend having 2 pry tools available. Okay, so now that we have our upper and lower housing disassembled and separated, here's the part we need to replace. Right here, our replacement lid motor, and then there's the one we're swapping out today. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our scissors and very carefully cut these zip ties that go to this wire here. Don't want to cut any wires by accident, so it's good to just be very careful when you do this. Like, take your time, but you will need to cut the zip ties in order to remove this part from the seat. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take this colored set of wires. It's a yellow, red, blue, black, and white, and we're going to trace it back to the seat lower housing. And we're going to, if you look here, the connector, it's this black connector on the corner of the PCB. We're going to disconnect that. And now our motor is no longer attached to anything, so that'll make this a little bit quicker. And to remove this part, there are 2 screws that we need to look for, and they're right there. We got one on top and then one on the lower part down there. So we're just going to take those out, put those in our bin. Okay, so this next part, we're going to grab our pry tools again, and there's a little bit of adhesive in here, and It's not too hard to break it free from, but you might need to use a little bit of force to get it out of here. So just kind of pry away from the edge of the seat, and then take your other pry tool and pry away. So kind of like in two different directions, this way and this way. And this does take a bit of force to get out, but once you get it, it just pops right out. As you can see, there's a bead of glue in there that was holding it in place. And so now we're going to take our new part and reinstall this. So on the old one, there's a little rubber O-ring, and we're going to make sure that that goes back on our new part. So it's going to restore that there, and take our motor and kind of at an angle, try to line it up with the seat and the lid. You might have to wiggle this back and forth because there is a specific keyed orientation, and then it'll snap right back in place. We're going to take our two screws that we just took out a minute ago. Don't need to use a lot of torque on these, just enough to hold it in place, just snug. If you go too tight, the screws will strip out the plastic, and that would not be a good thing. So now we're going to take our wire and we're going to run it back to the lower housing where the PCB is, and we're going to plug it into this black connector right here. Should snap right in place. And if you have zip ties available on hand, you can take them and just wrap them around this bundle of wires, and just not too snug, but just enough to kind of hold things in place and keep it neat. And if you have scissors, just trim those. Two zip ties right here will do the job just fine. This is not required by any means, but it just helps keep things out of the way of any moving parts inside the seat. So now that we have those and the motor's now plugged in, we're gonna put the lower housing and upper housing back together. And this part's pretty straightforward. So we're just gonna take it, flip it over, and drop it in place. Everything should line up pretty easily. I would also, just to make note of the dryer flap, you don't want this to get caught underneath anything by any chance. So just make sure that this is out of the way before you snap the lower housing to the upper housing. So we're going to start with the front on this one. So these just kind of push together. Now when we get to the back, we've got these little tabs in there. What we're going to do is we're going to push those in and then push down so that they go into the spots they are made to go, not get stuck outside the seat. So push in and snap. Push in, snap. Now that our lower housing is now attached to the upper housing, we are going to take our three shorter screws that we have and reinstall them along the back three screw holes. So 1, 2, and 3. Not too tight, just snug, because it is metal screwing into plastic, and that would easily break if you go too crazy with it. Now we're going to reinstall our 4 screws in the front. These are the slightly longer ones. Once again, just snug, not too tight. And now your seat is ready for use again. That is how you repair a Ultra Nova lid motor.